Hello, welcome. I'm Gabrielle Hoffman. I studied art history a little while ago, and this was a good exercise for me to brush up on many of the famous artists. And I really enjoyed reading that many of you welcomed this experience, transcribing the masterworks, and many of you learned something just like I did. The first work we will talk about is Gustave Caillebotte's Paris Street, Rainy Day. And it's really two paintings in one. It's the city scene with the glistening pavement and the buildings, and yes, we see people in umbrellas. And let's look closely. Isn't this Mary Poppins? Wow, how adorable! And then it's a more intimate scene where he shows this couple. They seem to be well acquainted with each other because she has her arm under his. And it's the more private scene. So like the title, Paris Street, Rainy Day, the picture is split up in two halves that are joined by this light post. This is a very nice transcription of the original. Here's our second piece, Paul Cézanne's Onions and a Bottle. It's a still life of 1896, and it's not that populated with objects as he does a little later, but there is plenty to see. The knife is positioned like this to show the depth of the painting. And don't I see a very clever note here, not Cézanne, that was very cleverly thought out by the artist. And then he experiments with the rounds to show volume. And the cloth, since there's a rectangular, here's a round, the cloth mixes it up a little bit so it's more playful, the piece. This is a self-portrait by Paul Cézanne of 1895, and he's 56 years old. The artist did it in watercolor with simple washes. He's wearing a simple dark coat. And he's balding, he's a mature man now. I was fascinated by the look in his eyes. What is he taking stock of his life? Is he questioning, his accomplishments? He looks a little bit tired to me. So it's a very nice transcription from the original. This is an Edward Hopper Pemaquid light. It shows the iconic lighthouse and some simple coastal buildings, and the artist introduced two cats instead of the three fishermen who stood there. Now, the lighthouse structures were actually seen as an analogy for Hopper. They are tall, solitary buildings and kind of taciturn, kind of like his personality was. And the light is just unique. I mean, he did a perfectly clear depiction of the light up in the northeast in Maine. Here's another Winslow Homer. It's called Fresh Air, and it was definitely done outside on plein air. It's from 1878. It depicts a beautiful young lady, a shepherdess. I would say it's somewhat idealized. Look at her beautiful shoes and her lovely dress. and he accomplished the atmospheric sky with countless washes of grays, pinks, and blues. And he's keeping an upward perspective. And the sheep are framing her. It's a beautiful piece. This lovely sun-drenched piece is by Winslow Homer, and the original is called On the Style. And the artist called her transcription More Style on the Style, which is lovely. She updated the dress to contemporary jeans and t-shirt for both of the young couple. Now, the original had the woman wear a long, lacy dress down to her ankle. But in both instances, the fellow, he's looking ahead. He's not looking back at her, how she's doing, how she's getting over the style. He already seems to be planning, you know, we're going to lie down there in the grass and, you know, do have some fun. What I also find remarkable is the diagonal here, and then all these horizontal lines, and the two people are basically the only verticals, and there's an sort of an unpainted line going diagonal here again. I am really grateful to the artist John to introduce me to this wonderful painter I was not familiar with. Willem Caff from the Netherlands, and the work is, the original is from the 1650s, and it's a still life, and John called it Time Traveler. And he, where there was a compass in the original, there's now a cell phone, very clever. He did transcribe very well the reflection of light in this vase or this glass, and on the oranges. The oranges look just like we want to eat them right away. Very well done, very well done. And I was smitten with the original. It's a sumptuous still life, and I'm very happy to have known now this artist. Here from the 16th century, we're going to the 20th century. Kazimir Malevich, a supremacist work of 1916. I'm not a big fan of supremacists, but that's irrelevant. In the original, there's geometric forms arranged in a very austere way on the white ground. And Simone did a nice job. I just love the bird she constructed here with the geometric forms, and she maintained the stark background of the white. And her color arrangement is similar. It's mostly primary colors: blue, red, and yellow. You know, different weights and different sizes of shapes. So it's she put a lot of life into this Malevich. This is On the Beach by Edouard Manet, 1873. And the original, he has his brother and his wife posing on the beach, and his brother looks into the distance, and his wife, heavily dressed in dress and maybe a shawl, she's reading a book. So they're really into their own worlds. And this is nicely captured here by these two young people who both look at their phones. You know, they're also into their own world. Alice, the artist, she repeated the low horizon, which usually is not a good sign for the content of the work. She showed the waves nicely and the sand. So it's a lovely beach scene. Well, here's another Edouard Manet of a lovely young woman. It's called The Plum, of 1877. Here sits this lovely young woman with a little bit of plum brandy in front of her. And she looks into the distance. She looks kind of sad. Maybe she was stood up by the man she had a date with. A very forlorn look. She's dressed up with a hat and some ruffles up there around the hat. And I think her facial expression is really the main gist of the work. What is she thinking about? She looks so forlorn and somewhat blue.